Hi everyone, subscribe to the channel. We have a lot of interesting things. Today we're going to try to understand what is the New World Order. What do we expect in the future? And so, let's begin. Why do we see so much pain, suffering, and destruction in recent times, despite the fact that every day we only hear about how wise leaders of all countries, as well as heads of international organizations, charitable foundations, financial institutions, environmentalists are only busy to adjust everything and make our lives beautiful. A huge number of organizations engaged in the fight against poverty, hunger, disease, human rights violations, crime, as a rule. These are so-called NPO non-profit organizations funded by the richest people and their foundations. They think about us, they care about us. They have been working for many decades. Sometimes you want to ask these benefactors of humanity, how are things going with crime, human trafficking, weapons, epidemics? Do you get anything? How are the successes? You have never heard of the mimic octopus? It is also sometimes called octopus imitator. Is such an osprey with many tentacles and a deadly beak, like a parrot inhabiting warm waters off the coast of Thailand and Australia in the area of the Great Barrier Reef. Mimic it is called, because it can take the coloration of more than 15 sea creatures, and its potential victims just do not see it as an octopus. But let's not get distracted. In our turbulent times right now, there are processes going on that not many people know about. Although there is enough information about them, it is worth only to direct your attention to it all over the world in all countries at the same time is building a new world order. For brevity, we will say NMP. This word combination is inscribed on the dollar symbol of the New World Order. Is an eye in the pyramid means it total control and round-the-clock surveillance. For the last few years, it can be seen almost everywhere. By the way, the faces of movie actors from the stars of show business showing us one eye are anthropomorphic analog of this icon, as well as folded in a special way, fingers. It is an obedient oath of allegiance to bankers, billionaires who are now building this very NMP. And what is this order? We will now briefly try to tell. The advent of the NMP is caused by the end of the era of capitalist system. As you probably studied in school, before it was a feudal system and before it was a slave system, so now comes a new social system with other laws and rules. Called it inclusive capitalism is quite unusual. Capitalism in which its stakeholders, that is, the vast majority of people living under it, will not have any property, neither private nor personal, any property at all. This is not all the news. This is the NMP, but let's take it one step at a time. You may have heard that almost all the wealth of the planet is concentrated in the hands of a small but extremely powerful group of super rich people. They no longer need us to buy things in stores. They no longer need us to buy anything at all and earn a profit. They have long been printing money themselves and produce it digitally. They have already bought everything that can be bought with money. They continue to buy up and take for debt everything that is not in their possession. This process is coming to an end. That is why at their Davos forum, they announced inclusive capitalism. Speaking of which, the speakers use the term sustainable development. Remember this phrase. Know that when you hear the term sustainable development, we are talking about building a new world order. In this new social order, there will be two castes of people, the rich and everyone else. They will be very different from each other, even in appearance. Transhumanists are already actively working on the creation of different kinds of people, higher and lower. The rich are still living with us in a world that we will not see soon, because we will not be able to go anywhere in this world. There is and will be all progressive science. The exploration of Mars, super medicine for the rich, life extension for hundreds of years, the art of literature, genetics for the production of superhumans, travel, and much more. And what kind of world will all the other inclusives be in, you ask? For all those who have not had time to get fabulously rich to buy a ticket to the new world, prepared a new special life. Now very much talk about overpopulation of the planet, which means that people should not be too much. No more than 500 million about it was written in an anonymous manifesto on the Georgia tablets recently. These tablets were blown up, not identified persons, most likely not to upset us because to get into these 500 million chances for the average person, let's say a little. And where to put the billions who live on planet Earth today, and that's where. Have you heard anything about global warming? About epidemics and terrible diseases? About selfless doctors? Corporate workers with syringes in their caring hands? About wars, revolutions, disasters, fires, floods, earthquakes? All of this somehow happens in a very timely manner, everywhere, and few people take refuge and can go somewhere far away, because soon we will all have to live in 15-minute cities and walk. If you haven't heard, go to the Davos Economic Forum website. It's all there. In such cities will live only those who are left alive, to live in compliance with the Code of Alimentarius, or life on minimum wage, to walk in one t-shirt, to eat insects and synthetic products. In small, isolated zones with a limit of going outside of it. Have nothing, no opinion, no rights, no property, absolute power of some and absolute disempowerment of others. Lifespan for the average person will also be limited. Euthanasia is already being discussed in a number of countries, and laws are being passed, and in Japan, forced euthanasia is already being proposed, because helpless old people are an unnecessary burden on the system. You will have nothing and you will be happy is the slogan of the NMP, which is offered to us by all those who will have everything, including the land itself, because they have only a couple of steps left to privatize all bioresources, water, forests, mountains, and even the air, which cannot be polluted. Full appropriation, privatization, and commercialization of the Earth's resources is already in full swing, and soon everything will belong only to supercorporations. That's the plan. The phases of the establishment of the NMP are coming one after another, and we invite you to familiarize yourself with them. The organizers of this unprecedentedly large-scale event understand voluntarily people will not give up their homes, cars, property, children. Do not be surprised. The removal of children is entrusted to juvenile justice, and moved to live in a prison city, such as the city of the Wall of Mirrors, which has already begun to build in Saudi Arabia. Its length is 170 kilometers, and it will accommodate 9 million people. So to move to such a city, people need to be prepared. Housing must become uninhabitable or forcibly seized. For all this, we need extraordinary circumstances. Extraordinary circumstances around the world, by the way. They want to build the NMP with our own hands. They are the customers, we are the executors. Why us? Because there is no one else to build it? The NMP is being built by our own hands, in small pieces, and it will become extremely terrible only at the moment of complete assembly. Then everyone will realize that absolutely everything has happened, but it will be too late. Two main techniques are used for the construction. The first is a total lie. The sheep should think that due to the unfavorable situation, they are simply moved to a new pasture where they are waiting for a little less grass, but life is basically tolerable. The second is the principle of small steps. Everything is done gradually and under the cover of very plausible pretexts, concern for the environment, health protection of freedom, and other pleasantries. So, Phase 1, the sudden emergence of extraordinary circumstances, a well-known epidemic occurs, the basic controlling emotion of the overwhelming majority of people. Fear starts the process. A problem has arisen. There is a solution, a perfect universal solution. Just a mosquito bite in the shoulder, the process is underway. Phase 2. People are divided into two camps. Those who are for and those who are against starts a social conflict. The first violent measures limiting freedom are introduced. Those who are against the official line get special names stigmatized, pushed to the periphery of the information field, marginalized and punished, partially deprived of their legal rights. The economy begins to paralyze, the usual way of life is broken, the majority submits and the rebellious minority resists, censorship starts, and punishment for disobedience begins. Phase 3. Loosening the leash. In order not to bring the tension to critical values and to calm the vigilance-announced goals. Immunization of 80% of the population. This solution and salvation is imitated by a partial recovery of the economy. A small relief is perceived as the end of bad times. However, the threat remains and is not completely off the agenda. The notion of variability is established, new viruses arrive, justifying coercive measures, restrictive measures that are already perceived as the new norm, and some of them remain in force. Phase 4. The establishment of a stable apartheid, the division of people into two varieties. Some better people have more rights, others worse and less rights. Those who submit have a new identity card confirming that they are better. Food shortages begin. Badges and QR codes are maximized in everyday life. Conflicts arise between the privileged and the disenfranchised. Rights to work or study are restricted. Access to basic services is limited, the rebellious are punished financially, payment tests and fines and dismissals. Phase 5. Establishing chaos and martial law, creating shortages of goods and food, fires and man-made disasters, followed by the paralysis of the real economy and the closure of factories and stores. Unemployment intensifies. The norm of life should become multiple. Regular vaccination, boosterization, the disposal of the elderly, the chronically ill. Heavy patience is activated. Euthanasia is legalized everywhere. Medicine is being gradually liquidated. Responsibility for the dead is being laid on those who do not accept the new rules. The government is liquidating the opposition everywhere. Total digital identification is being introduced. QR code, birth certificate, passport, driver's license, health insurance card, everything is being digitized. Establishment of martial law wherever possible, in all countries, a brutal sweep of NMP opponents. Phase 6, final dematerialization of money, destruction of cash, introduction of digital substitutes for money, with expiration date, purpose. Economic crisis of unprecedented proportions, collapse of financial and stock markets, bank failures, activation of the Great Reset, issuing everyone a digital wallet for the digital currency of the future, seizure of real estate, land, weapons, personal transportation, restrictions on movement within 15-minute cities, banning all global medicines, limiting pharmacies to prescription, reaffirming the obligation to vaccinate every 6 months or a year, introducing food rationing and a diet based on the Codex Alimentarius, replacing natural foods with natural foods. This is the New World Order. What can we do to counteract it? Well, first of all, explain the situation to at least 2 people close to you and let them tell 2 more people in turn. The more we understand what is going on, the better our chances of salvation. Further, ignore all innovations as much as possible. Use the services of live people and not robots. Do not go to self-service cash desks. Choose the services of live people. Always, when there is a choice to study, protect your rights, defend them if necessary in court, and most importantly, explain to everyone you can what is going on and refuse the convenience, comfort that you put, you digitalizers. Free cheese is put only in a mousetrap. Legal resistance is possible. Friends, each of us can do a lot of useful things in this world. It's time to stop thinking only about your plate. Help relatives, friends, and just acquaintances and strangers, if necessary, to realize what is happening. It's time for accelerated spiritual growth. It's time to begin to put the public good above the personal. Otherwise, we will not be saved. Thank you for watching.